This is Dan,
Dawn, and Karen.
And we are the co-producers of the new polyamory event Beyond the Love, Poly Summit 2013.
Beyond the Love is a low-cost 3-day event on November 15th through 17th in a newly renovated hotel in Columbus, Ohio.
You will find a variety of classes, workshops, and summits led by people who live in poly relationships from around the world.
As well as fun and interactive extras like poly speed dating and poly family feud.
There'll be a wealth of opportunity to learn tools, techniques, and communication skills to enhance our poly relationships.
We will provide a safe environment for meeting with other like-minded people in a supportive and inclusive community.
We welcome all those living in a poly lifestyle or considering doing so.
We're passionate about recognizing poly as a relationship choice and sharing common experiences on our many different paths.
Find out more at beyondthelove.org.
We hope to see you there.
Welcome to our Bliss Bringers podcast. The materials we cover encourage adults of all ages, nationalities, and sexualities to open up and embrace their wildest desires and blissful pleasures. You won't find medical advice here, just our personal experiences following the journey of sexual evolution and education in sizzling fun topics that were definitely not taught to us in school, but have wickedly blossomed into reality. We discuss adventures in ethical non-monogamy, kinks and fetishes, exotic places to visit, sexy events, workshops, and tips. Allow us to seduce you into embarking on new adventures where each day you ask yourself, what's your pleasure?
Welcome to episode 17 of Bliss Bringers. I'm John. My lovely wife is currently not with me. She's gallivanting around the world. I'm
Professor T.
The captain.
And we also have some visitors here.
We do. Do you do?
They snuck in. I have Dan.
Hi, guys.
And Dawn.
Hi.
Dawn?
Yes?
Are you glad to be on the other side of the microphone for a change?
I don't know. It's a little weird.
It is a little bit of a weird thing. We're normally hosting, so it's great to be interviewed by somebody. Just to give your audience a little background on who we are, Dawn and I are, we've been in a power exchange relationship for about 15 years now. We do identify as a master and slave. We managed to put together a book or two about living as a master slave, and we also get to do a podcast called Erotic Awakening.
We also present internationally at this point on a lot of different topics, and we are co-producers of a couple of events at this point. Busy.
Let's talk a little bit about yourselves first. So, how would you describe yourself and your sexual identity?
Ooh, I actually was trying to figure out how to put that into a short amount of words for myself. So I know for me, I consider myself a spiritual and sexual seeker. And with that in mind, I'm going to throw some words at you as to how I consider my authentic self. So it's a shamanic healer, sex educator, Buddhist-flavored pagan priestess, omnisexual, Kadishtu, and an empowered consensual slave.
Wow. Fuck, all I was going to say is horny middle-aged goat. But it's really interesting that, for myself, I would just say, we started off, Dawn and I said, well, gee, are we swingers? So let's try that. And there's people with some more open sexuality. And we recognized we had more of a open sense of sexuality. And, there's where I would express who I am. I'm simply an open to sexuality person. I don't fuck everything that I get. Oh, am I allowed to say that?
It's encouraged here.
Some time ago, we decided that we wanted to be sexually open, and we really weren't sure what that meant. So now we're just trying to walk in different paths and seeing what it does mean. And I'm a rotten swinger. I figured that out early on, but I didn't think that meant I was supposed to be not screwing other things or expressing passion and love and intimacy in other ways. And I guess I would sum myself up as a seeker. Dawn just said it real pretty like.
I like what Dawn said, but I'm interested. What do you mean you were a rotten swinger?
Our experience with swinging is limited enough, but what we've experienced with swinging is it's very much alcohol propelled. Well, I don't drink anymore, so that part's not for me. And it's also very fast. We would go to a club, we would meet somebody, we would start talking to them, we would turn our backs, they would be gone. And 15 minutes later, they'd be back and saying, oh, yeah, we just went and sucked and fucked and did all this fun stuff. What have you guys been doing? It's like,
we're still trying to get to know people.
So I found for myself that the physical aspect of sex is cool, but it's not particularly fulfilling unless it comes with an emotional or a spiritual or an additional component of some sort, right? If I was to meet up with the professor and have sex, we would probably have a good time. And I'm not assuming that that's okay in your world. Maybe I'm thinking of Gilligan's Island, that professor. But
you would have a good time with this professor too, I think.
But if you were to share something, I've always wanted to do this thing, and we got to share something like that. Or we started off by having this really intimate, slow eating dinner with each other and feeding each other grapes or some shit like that, right? I'm just not good at the pure physical aspect. I need something else to go with it to make it a fulfilling thing for me.
So what you're saying is you require lots of foreplay.
No, not
foreplay.
Really.
I guess you could put it that way.
See, we're also fantasy fulfillers. It's not just about the sex. It's about bringing something to life.
Right. So you like to connect with the people that you're with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think we all do. My experience with swinging has been quite different from yours, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and that's good. I mean, that's from different parts of the nation. We understand different parts of the country, different swing clubs. If you go to 3 swing clubs, that doesn't tell you what swingers are about. It tells you what that little individual experiences are like. And 2 out of 3 of the swing clubs we went to were kind of creepy. I mean, you can't just turn your house, and say, oh, this was my house last week. This week it's a swing club. Give me $20. Don't bother. Yes, that is a picture of my grandma watching you fuck.
Sorry, true story.
Yes.
Sounds to me like you're more into the direction of what others have called progressive swinging.
I haven't heard of that.
I will when we interview you on our podcast. That's what topic we're going to talk about.
Exactly. But I also see that you're heavily involved in the polyamory community.
Exactly.
So how do the two relate?
Well, I think it's because we didn't do so well as swinging. I mean, we're very sexual people, so we thought we would fit right in. And we actually started out in the BDSM world. So going into the swinging world was a little different. And we just figured out that we're more into relationships than pickup sex, I guess is how I would describe it. Not negative, positive, nothing good or bad, just the way we kind of float. So Dan has another partner. I'm in the process of dating someone else. We just came back from an event and I had a really hot kiss on the way out the door. So I may be checking out someone else soon as well.
And the reality is for us, we figured out, and Dawn and I both come from previous marriages. And previous marriages, what we were told was that we had to do the one man, one woman, and anything else was wrong. And it really did not feel wrong if I noticed somebody else was attractive or if I felt a sexual interest in another person. That didn't feel wrong to me. So when Dawn and I got together, we said, look, the rules is that if I end up finding someone else I'm attracted to, I'm going to go pursue that. I'm just not going to dump you along the way. I'm going to keep, we're going to work out a way that you'll still be part of my life as well. And the same rules apply for Dawn. And we've tried to date couples together and build those relationships. And what we found out later is that there's actually something called polyamory, the idea of many loves, the idea that you can have multiple relationships that include things that we normally think of relationships like dates and love and sex, and still be true to your partner. And as a matter of fact, when Dawn comes home telling me about a date that she's been on, I either feel very good about it, that, oh, she got to go experience something nice. Like, for example, if Dawn goes off shoe shopping with the girlfriend, I don't feel jealous. I don't feel envy. I'm actually glad that I didn't have to go. If she comes back with a great date and she went off doing something I don't enjoy, or even if it's something I do enjoy, and that's one of the dirty little secrets of polyamory. Dawn comes back on a date that was a great restaurant. We get to go to the great restaurant together. She scoped it out for me. Or even if it's sex, and when Dawn comes back and says, oh, I had wonderful sex with Lewis. Well, that's wonderful, baby. Let me share that with you. Actually, that's a big turn on for me. But
that's one of your
That's actually a fetish part more than it is polyamory. But like Dawn mentioned, I've had an additional partner for 6 years now.
Something like that.
Dawn and I have been married for...
well, we've been together for 14, a little over 14. First interview was 15 years ago.
It's an enhancement to our relationship versus a conflict.
The two of you are the primary relationship, however.
If you want to use labels, that's how I would.
Oh, okay.
Because we live together, we share finances, we do a lot of
things
together.
Raise kids together,
right?
That sort of thing. So yeah, from a normal perspective, that'd be right.
Do your children know about it?
They kind of, sort of know about it, as in they don't want to know at this point.
They're indirectly aware, and at this point,
we've actually had a small conversation in case they ran across us. with other people, so they didn't think we were cheating on each other. But they literally told us, oh, that's your business. I don't want to know.
Right.
So how does that link into the Dom-Sub dynamic? Are those related, or are those separate dimensions of your relationship?
Well, it's a particularly fun thing because they're not related. Dawn and I have a power exchange relationship, but Karen and I do not have a power exchange relationship. We have a peer relationship, so it gets a little interesting around here on occasion. But everybody understands there's also some individual needs that they need to express. If I say, hey, let's go see the new Batman movie, Karen will say, well, I would rather go see the new Jackie Chan movie. I expect Dawn to speak Dawn's heart, not just, yes, master, let's go see Batman, which would be fun now that I think about it. Wait a minute, why don't we do that? Maybe we can.
You're in charge. All you have to do is set the rules.
Are there any movies with Jackie Chan and Batman in it? That'd
be awesome.
So the two things, often a lot of people will find that they do work well together. In our paradigm, they're not directly connected. If I or Dawn start a new relationship, we take out, well, will this be a power exchange or not? Doesn't have to be. It's a good foundation, but a peer relationship can be a good foundation too.
So does the power exchange aspect of your relationship permeate the whole relationship, or is it mostly sexual, or?
No, ours is a 24/7 relationship. Dan is always in charge. So it's a hierarchical relationship, and he's earned the trust from me. I really had to find someone that I could trust to give that sort of power to. It is the foundation of our relationship, and we created it on purpose that way.
You're both comfortable in those positions.
Absolutely.
And it really works out well for us to understand, because really a power exchange relationship, we use the terminology master slave. Other people prefer terminology like dom sub or owner property or owner pet. It really depends on your viewpoint, how you approach it, but it's all about responsibility, right? Dawn's responsible for taking care of me. I'm responsible for taking care of the relationship. And it's nice to know that when something happens, the buck has a place that it's going to stop. There's always a spot where somebody's going to step up and say, yep, I'll take care of it. Right. And it's wonderfully for Dawn when I step up on occasion and I say, yep, I fucked up and I'll fix it. Versus the things we used to do in our previous relationship where it said, well, if you didn't burn the toast, then I wouldn't have crashed the car.
Sort of thing. Yeah. We find that this, in our past relationships, we had power struggles, and I really don't like power struggles. I like to know where I fit in the structure and what's expected. We kind of got rid of the power struggle.
Dawn, you said that you felt that you consider yourself an empowered slave.
Yes, I do.
What does that mean?
That means by surrendering to Dan, I have actually found my seat of power. So by being able to take care of him, I can also take care of what I need to take care of. So I don't know how else to explain it. It's like I can go out. I run a meditation center, a community center. I co-author things, but it's because I don't have that power struggle. If I want to go to school and Dan says no, the answer is no, and I don't have to fight that. And it frees up that energy.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk a little bit. How did you roll into doing podcasting?
Well, Dawn and I have been presenting around the nation for and I guess now that we've been to Canada a few times now, so now we are going to say we are international presenters.
We needed a passport.
Yes, so it counts, right? So we've been presenting for about 10 years on a variety of power exchange and BDSM and sacred sexuality and blah, blah, blah. And we met all these interesting people, and we would come back to town and we would have dinner with a friend and say, oh, I wish you had a chance to meet Jay Wiseman or Bill, who was a guy we met in the hallway who was shining shoes, and they were really interesting people. And eventually we realized, well, we should just start recording these conversations. And also, what the other aspect is, a lot of times, especially after we published our book, people would write us and say, you've dealt with this kind of thing before, how do you deal with this? And we realized we kind of got similar kind of questions often, and it felt like we really had something of value to share. So one day, and this is literally how it happened, there's another podcast called Ropecast, and that's run by a guy named Gray Dancer. And one day Gray Dancer stuck a microphone in our face and he asked us some questions. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm recording a podcast. I said, are you now? 6 months later, we started the Erotic Awakening Podcast. It's just been weird to week after week to just keep going with it and feel like you have something of value to share. And every once in a while, and I'm sure you guys are starting to experience this, you get email back from people saying, you guys talked about so-and-so, and it was nice to know somebody else is dealing with that. Or it was just nice to know that you can be sexually active and happy, that you've got a good relationship, even though you've got certain things going on. For us, it's just been a great, great journey. It's been a great enhancement to our relationship.
So what's the target audience that you're shooting for?
Kinky people.
Or people trying to figure out if they're kinky, or pretty much anything that's erotic or anything like that.
Power exchange, leather lifestyle, contests.
Fetishes.
And the nice thing about the podcast is for things we don't know anything about, we reach out to other people, we make them come on the podcast and teach us, right? I.e. progressive swinging. I have no clue what that is, but after I talk, to you guys, I'm going to find out what that is. And we're very fortunate. We get a lot of people that listen to the podcast are people that they're not ready to go out and express themselves sexually, right? They might have read, a book, a 50-something or something, and said, man, I wish I could go to that event, or I could go to a swing club, but I'm just not ready. And they get to got an email saying, it's great to hear what it's like. I'm not ready to go get tied up and spanked and have an anal plug shoved. Will you quit moaning? It's shoved in my hooch. But it's great to hear you guys talk about it, and feel very good when we do go to an event and somebody says, you know what, we're podcast listeners. We knew you guys would be here. And we thought, at least we'll know somebody that's here, and we're going to try our first event.
Yeah, I think with us as well, we didn't even know that swinging existed. We had no idea that there was swinging and BDSM or polyamorous or any of this stuff. What percentage doesn't even know that swinging exists? A lot of people don't even know.
Right.
And yet, they're cheating on their spouses. They got a hard on throughout the day. They're gawking at other females or males or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they're doing it with guilt, shame, distrust.
When in actuality, there's ways of doing it with responsibility. So, we've actually designed communication tools for our relationship so that it can work on this level.
Right. I mean, we know for us, it's totally enhanced our relationship. Mm-hmm. And we've had these fantasies, ever since we were kids. We had fantasies, teenagers, and then we started to share them, and we just think, wow, we get to live this stuff out? Holy man, that's even better.
Exactly.
And together, we get to do it together.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Right.
And the other thing that you guys are guilty of is the Beyond the Love stuff. So talk a little bit about that. What's this about? And why should we care?
You should care because I tell you to. So let's move on. Now, Dawn and I have been very fortunate that we go to a lot of events. There were not many events for people that are polyamorous and want to express that. And there's this one in California.
Yeah, but it's poly and.
Yeah.
It's poly and a lot of other stuff, which we're great with. But there's some people out there that are not into and. They're not into kink. They're not into things like that. They're poly.
So Beyond the Love is a weekend event focused on polyamory relationships. And the idea of falling in love is easy, right? But managing multiple relationships takes a lot of skill, takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of communication skills. So our idea was, let's bring together some of the best presenters that we know. And where Dawn and I have been presenting for 10 years, we get to meet other presenters and say, here's somebody, when he talks about polyamory, he's not quoting from a book. He's not invited to speak because he's a PhD. He's here speaking because he's managed multiple relationships. He's got the scars to show, and he's got solutions for those things that didn't work. And bring everybody together and have the opportunity to learn, socialize, and have some fun, and just be with like-minded people. We're very fortunate in Columbus, Ohio, where Dawn and I are at. There's over 50 people a month that show up at our local poly meetup.
And some of that, we have new people every month, so it's not the same 50. It's a huge crowd just right here in this one city.
And so part of it for me and Dawn is recognizing that when we first started our relationship, had we known about polyamory then, it might have taken a different course. We might have started off a little easier for us. Having that opportunity for people just to learn more about polyamory and do it in such a way that it's not going to break the bank, right? $69 for an entire weekend. I can go to a fancy restaurant around here and create a $69 poo. So the idea of having $69 and have 10 presenters, multiple classes, and a game show, and poly speed dating. I should have probably led with because of poly speed dating, but that's just a part of it too.
So how many people do you expect?
And will there be a potluck? Because I have the impression that every poly event does a potluck for some reason.
That's funny. Our poly group does 2 potlucks a year too. I did not know that.
What did I just say?
So we're aiming for about 200 people. It's a hotel event, but we've got a section of the hotel that only our attendees will be allowed in. About 200 people is what it will hold. A little bit more than that. I think it's going to be fabulous. So lots of stuff going on, lots of people to meet, chill for the weekend.
Is there a sexual aspect? It's not a swinger event. It's not a BDSM event.
Right.
It's straight vanilla poly.
Straight, it's focused on the relationships themselves, right?
Okay.
Because the sex part is fun, but the sex, at least in our house, the sex doesn't last 8 hours a day, right? Everything else, the bills, the cat crapping on the carpets, I got to get the kids to school, and girlfriend number 1 wants to go see a movie, but I just took girlfriend number 2 to the same movie. How do you deal with that kind of thing? This is something I want to last for a little while. It's where our focus is. There's plenty of places to learn about kink. There's plenty.
I just say we just unloaded the car from coming back from a kink event. There's one next weekend. We got one in 3 weeks. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of places to do that. We wanted our event to have a different focus.
Yep.
Right. So the weekend is to meet people. It's not necessarily to go and have sex or anything. It's to meet people and possibly develop a relationship.
And learn. And go to the sessions.
And learn and have a support network.
And not necessarily just to meet people, but I actually want people who already have partners come and learn how to keep their relationships healthy. Meeting other people is an aspect of it, but building long-term foundations for our existing relationships is an important part of it as well.
And that's the focus that we take with our other event as well. So we have another event that we run yearly. Even though it's power exchange, it is not a party. It is all on how to communicate and build your dynamic and build your foundation.
And I don't know if this is true in the swinger community or even the circles that you guys run in. A lot of times we'll ask people, how long have you been in a relationship? And, in a group of people, we've been together for 2 years. We've been together 4 years. And then less and less people, 6 years and 8 years. And it's scary how few people in our circles have been together for 10 years. And the reality is, at the end of the day, when I'm old and sitting on a rocking chair, I want Dawn to be next to me. And I want to be able to say, boy, did we have a good time.
I'm just going to grin because I'm not going to be able to remember everything, but I'll know it was good.
There'll be pictures. No,
yes.
I think right. In the swinging community, I've seen a lot of people who've been married for a longer time, like 10 years, 20 years. Obviously, if they're 20, then they're not going to be married for 10 years, but is a sort of correlation, I think, between having the happy and open communication marriage and a long-term marriage.
Yep.
But also many of these people have had their starter marriages where they tried out monogamy and it didn't work.
I think we had those.
Yeah.
And it's not that we need swinging for our relationship to work. That's not the case between Professor T and I. However, we can say that swinging has definitely enhanced our relationship, and we're just having a lot of fun with it. And one of the things, and we've mentioned this in past podcasts, is our first experience at a resort, and after a couple days, one of our observations was we felt that the couples at the resort loved each other and cared about each other the same way we did, and we don't see a lot of that.
Nice. Nice for you, anyway. Not nice that you don't see a lot of it.
No. Too bad.
And it's I see now I've gone into podcast host mode because now I want to ask you, do you find that a lot of people use swinging to fix their relationships? But I'm going to save that until you're on our podcast.
Well, they think it's going to fix it, but
we can actually I can answer that one. In that, in my opinion, try swinging to save a marriage is like having a baby.
Yeah.
To save a marriage. It is an absolutely god-awful idea.
Oh, it's even more doomed, I think.
The way that I used to explain it is swinging or any sort of other opening of a relationship will put a magnifying glass on your relationship. If it's good, it will get better. If it's bad, it'll get worse.
Right, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a lot to work through. Similar things, I think. I mean, not so much. I went to see the movie with Joe, and now I want to go see the movie. Now Paul wants to go see the same movie. Not so much that, but it does put the same kind of pressure of jealousy and how to manage communication and those kinds of things on the relationship.
And no doubt it's challenging, either from just open relationships in general to polyamory, where Dawn can be sitting on my left and I'll turn to her and say, I love you, baby, and mean it deeply. And then I'll turn to my right and say the same thing to Karen. That brings up a lot of challenges to some people. Some people flow with it with no problem, and I hate those people, to be honest. I mean, I envy them. That's the word I want. But to be able to sit with other people and learn about, just a simple tool like Google Calendar so that everybody knows where everybody's at, and, you don't have those miscommunications or you can manage your surprises, can have, be very, very, very beneficial. And again, just to circle around.
There's a rumor here in the Valley, in the birthplace of Google, is that Google Calendar is actually designed for poly people.
That wouldn't surprise me.
And the other running joke is that what's the poly mating call? Oh, let me open my Google Calendar.
That's a good one.
Another interesting thing that I saw on your website was a card game that you developed.
Oh, Kickstarter, yeah.
And it reminded me a little bit of what Kidder Caper did with Great Sex Games.
The idea of Kickstarter is the problem when I go, either if I'm going to a swing club, if I'm going to a BDSM event, is I'm good at the flirting. I'm good at meeting people. I'm good at saying, hey, you're hot. And I say it much better than that, I hope. But interacting and getting to the point where we agree, yeah, we're interested in each other. I'm good at that part. The part that I'm not good at is, so what do you want to do? And because a lot of people that I interact with, they're not necessarily, they may or may not be interested in fucking, but they may have all kinds of very other interests as well. You're from bondage to flogging to vegetables as insertables. Yeah, those guys. All kinds of interesting stuff. So the thing we did with Kickstarter was to come up with a card game that would allow us to interact with each other and say, look, I've got these things here that I'm kind of feeling like doing tonight. What about you? And they can go back and forth.
So it was created to be like a communication tool. So it's not like a tabletop game. It's more of a communication tool, but definitely fun.
Yep.
I like that. I like games that encourage people to express their kinkier side, because I think sometimes people are short on ideas.
And shy and...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So if people want to find out more about you and the podcast and the event, where should they go?
To find out more about Dawn and I, just head over to eroticawakening.com. From there, you'll find a link to the podcast, to our bios, to our calendar, the books, the whole spiel. To find out more about the event, head on over to beyondthelove.org, and that is it's a poly event run by poly people for poly people. We're really looking forward to that first year and hoping that a lot of people will join us and become the force that drives the event, right?
Awesome. So we will put those references in the show notes.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Oh, thank you for bringing us on. We very much appreciate it, and very much appreciate you guys as the podcast community, helping us share some of the stuff that we're excited about and interested in, and it's nice for us to sit on the other side of the mic for a change. And
excellent.
Professor, if you want to come out and teach me a little bit about swinging, I'd very much appreciate that.
We might be able to teach you a thing or two about swinging.
Nice.
That is all that we have time for today. Remember to check out Beyond the Love in Columbus, Ohio, November 15th through 17th, 2013. Remember to check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/blissbringers. You can also check us out on Twitter at blissbringers. If you didn't get all that, you can find all this and our show notes on blissbringers.com. Until next time,
what's your pleasure?
All names mentioned in this show are either fictional, taken from public record, or held by people who have given their explicit consent to be mentioned.